A family. The intricate tapestry of souls, woven together by the threads of shared laughter, tears, and the relentless passage of time. In this story, the lives of the Lins and Zs were entwined by strands of achievement and envy inside the throbbing tapestry of familial ties, jealousy, and money. Come with us as we explore this thrilling story.
Good evening. It was a crime that left Sydney aghast. A family of 5 killed in their home in the middle of the night. 3.5.
It all started with the couple named Min Lin and Yun Lin. They met while attending college in Australia. Both are native Chinese who moved to Australia in search of better prospects and success. Following their college graduation, the pair relocated to a northern Australian suburb called Epping and gave birth to their first child, June Brenda Lin. She was born in August of 1994. Their second child, Henry, was born in June 1997, and their youngest, Terry, was born in 2000. The couple chose to start a company newsstand agency in the early 2000s. Their firm has been successful over the years, which rewarded them with a nice house, a nice car, and an opportunity for their children to go to private school. The couple are known as good, modest parents and great business owners that are not known to have any enemies. Overall, their lives in Australia were very much thriving and lived comfortably. There were even speculations that their business netted a total of $1 million a year. One day, the couple decided to invite their relatives from China to visit them. In the early 2000s, the first relatives that came to Australia were the parents of Min. Min's parents eventually helped the couple to take care of their children whenever they were away. Throughout the time, Min and Yun bought a small house for Min's parents for them to live independently. Fast forward in 2007, Min's younger sister Kathy Lin and her husband Robert Z immigrated to Australia as well. Robert, who was a successful ENT doctor in China, decided to change occupation and try the realms of entrepreneurship. They invested their savings to open up a business in Australia, but the business struggled and soon closed due to bankruptcy. However, Robert still tried other businesses like cafe and a snack store, but still failed due to the lack of experience in the field of business. After a few months, Robert and Kathy decided to move to North Epping in Australia, where Min and Yun Lin are living. Soon, Kathy found work, but Robert is still in a state of self-discovery, unsure of his future goals. Furthermore, the Lin and Z family are known also for their kinship and friendship, often went through family gatherings, unbeknownst to them that the last gathering of the two families would soon come. On the morning of July 18th, the shop of the Lin family mysteriously closed. Frequent customers who came to stop by the shop were left to wonder, since their store didn't have any signs of a letter why they were closed on that day. Moreover, customers became aware of the shop's unusual behavior and made multiple unsuccessful attempts to get in touch with the owner, Min. Others even attempted to call her sister Kathy to find out if Min was all right, because his brother generally makes plans in advance if he won't be able to manage the shop on a particular day. When Kathy received tens and hundreds of calls from his customers, she became startled and was also confused with the current situation. Following multiple unanswered calls, Kathy made the decision to visit Min and Yun's home. Soon after they arrived at the house, they saw that the homeowners were nowhere to be found, but the family car was still parked in the driveway, and the doors were left unlocked. Inside the house was eerily quiet. The house appeared undisturbed with no signs of forced entry. Kathy decided to call his brother Min. Seemingly, she heard the ringtone of his brother on the second floor of the house. Upon opening the bedroom door of the couple, Kathy screamed in horror from the sight she saw. After arriving, she was greeted with a room drenched in blood. Colors of the wall, including the ceiling, couldn't be seen since it was all covered with blood. The lifeless body of the couple, Min and Yun Lin, was mutilated in the bed. Right in front of the couple's room was the children's bedroom. 12-year-old Henry and 9-year-old Terry were brutally beaten to death with their bodies lying in each corner of the room. On the other hand, Brenda, the 15-year-old daughter, had fortunately been on a school trip and was away from the horrendous crime scene that had happened. Kathy immediately called the 911, hoping to save anyone they could. After the emergency services arrived, Robert decided to fetch Lin's parents, who lived 10 kilometers away from the crime scene. Emergency services think that this is one of the most tragic crime scenes Australia have ever seen. Every member of the Lin family was hit in the head, and investigators suggest the weapon used was a hammer. The blood spatters provided more evidence that the kids were awake and frantically tried to get out of the house. Interestingly, There were distinct tracks of patterns and bloody shoe prints all over the house. Though the brand is unknown, the shoe size, which is specifically a size 9.5 US, is obvious. Additionally, the lack of any discernible fingerprints leads investigators to believe that the murderer was wearing gloves. The investigators also were confused because the majority of the known people of the Lin family thought that the Lin family does not have any enemies, leading the officials to itch their heads as to who was to blame for these horrific acts. On the other hand, Brenda Lin, the eldest and now the sole survivor of the extensive, heard the tragedy news from social media, but refused to believe that it was her family that was involved in the scene. However, moments later, her aunt Kathy called her and revealed that it was indeed her family who was involved in the gruesome crime scene. Brenda was quickly flown back to Sydney, where Robert and Kathy are her new guardians due to the family's passing. Brenda became the heir to the substantial fortune of the family. However, due to the fact that she is still underage to manage all the assets of the family, her legal guardians Kathy and Robert are responsible for maintaining the business that the family left. Brenda's grandparents also offered their support and insisted on them being her primary guardian until she reached her appropriate age. However, Robert became aware of this and threatened legal action if the elderly relatives persisted to take that decision, also pointing out that they were too old and wasn't physically fit to care and nurture a teenager. After the temporary closure of the Lin's family shop, it reopened once again because of the new management under the Z family. It is also important to note that Robert had also reviewed the bank accounts of the Lin family and their other assets. Throughout the investigation, experts have also deeply investigated Lin's house for more details about the crime. Investigators suggest that the culprit has entered the house, either quietly or has a key accessed. The weapon that is believed that's been used in the crime was a hammer, and it could not also be seen around the area of the property, leaving experts to believe that they brought it with them. It was also obvious that the suspect came prepared, leaving no fingerprints behind, suggesting that he or she might have used gloves while doing the horrendous crime. Nonetheless, a lump sum of theories emerged while investigators were dealing with the crime. From a robbery gone wrong to local Chinese-affiliated mafia members. Due to the area's reputation with such crime, it was not far to believe that it was the case. Although at this point there were still no solid leads or evidence to what really happened to the Lin family. Coincidentally, the power line of the house was cut during the night before the crime happened, suggesting that the culprit knew where the power breaker was. Doing such a horrible crime in total darkness led the officials to believe that the suspect had already been inside the house before, since he or she was strangely familiar with the layout of the property. Continuing with the investigation, a crucial clue rose while investigators reviewed the recordings of the call of Kathy to the emergency services. While officials went back to review Kathy's call, they noticed that at the very end of the call, Kathy mentioned something to her husband, Robert, in Cantonese. It turned out that Kathy was begging his husband, Robert, to not leave her all alone in the house, because strangely enough, Robert decided to fetch Min's parents on his own. Authorities believed that Robert had committed an unusual act by abandoning his own wife, putting her in danger since the murderer may still be around, yet he refused to stay and left. This piqued the officials' attention and made Robert Z the primary suspect. A few months later, Brenda, the sole survivor of the family, revealed to the authorities that his dad, Min, had given Robert a spare key to the house in case of some circumstances. It was also claimed that, although Robert had a degree in the field of medical, he nonetheless had no background of stable work in becoming an ENT doctor. In short, he faked his identity of being a doctor. Rumor also has it that he migrated to Australia to avoid charges of bribery in his homeland China. For the authorities, Robert's plan was starting to become rather evident. He was motivated by his wife's family's money, homes, and profitable company, and feels envious of their more prosperous and accomplished relatives. But because there wasn't enough solid evidence against Robert, the police couldn't yet make an arrest against him. Few weeks later, the investigation team was permitted to install hidden cameras into the Z's residences in hopes of putting an end to this misery. Unexpectedly, Kathy was interrogated again by one of investigators. She mentioned that a few years back, Robert purchased 2 pairs of sneakers. The first pair was worn out by him, while the other pair was kept intact at their house. Notably, Robert wore size 9.5, the same size as the killer's. Consequently, he was seen in one of the hidden cameras destroying the sneaker box that was mentioned by Kathy. The thread pattern of the shoes and a small stain of blood on the sole shows the same exact ones as the killer, matching the shoes that Robert had thrown. This evidence was enough for the officials to make a warrant and arrest the perpetrator. In May of 2011, 2 years after the horrendous crime, the Lin family was slowly being brought to justice. However, Robert repeatedly denied his involvement in the crime, stating that the blood was his and that he couldn't do such a crime. While awaiting trial in the prison, he began confessing his dreadful deeds to some inmates that he shared a cell with. Another source testified during Robert's trial in June 2016 that Robert had admitted to having a fixation with Brenda, Min's eldest child. After Brenda's parents passed away, Robert and Kathy took on the role of primary guardians for her. After being questioned, Brenda eventually admitted that Robert had forced her into a sexual connection. Fearing for her life, she decided to remain silent for years until she was questioned by the police. After all of the allegations and information against Robert Z., he was ultimately found guilty of all of them. He was given 5 life sentences, 1 for each fatal crime, with no chance of parole. The judge also denied all of his appeals after that.